All right. So we've got to, we should talk real quick because this is crazy. We made fun of on our show. I don't remember if it was the live stream or the main show, but we made fun of those stupid fucking Trump NFTs. It was main show.
Yeah, no, yeah.
He's sold out.
Well.
How do you sell out? First of all, how do you sell out of digitally fake scarce things?
Yeah, I don't know. But I think like, you could also say you sold out too. Like, it's like, how do we know? Right. That's a number one. How many were there? We don't know. They said there's 40,000 of them. Right. So they said that of the NFTs, there was 40,000 of them. And like, supposedly he like plagiarized them.
Yeah. So like a bunch of the images were like Shutterstock images and other things.
But in any case, you're right. He did sell them out. But here's the thing though, Tom. Of all the things Trump supporters did in the past several years, is buying NFTs the dumbest thing they did?
It is so in character.
It's like 100% in character.
This is perfectly in character.
Probably not the dumbest thing they did, right?
Right.
Probably not the dumbest thing they did. And buying NFTs, that's seriously that's like Terry Schiavo level.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's brain
level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's really genuinely.
There's nothing there.
Nothing there.
Yeah.
But even still, that's probably not the dumbest thing they believed or did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just when we saw them, I thought, and I keep thinking this, and I'm just gonna like shame on Tom. I keep thinking like, all right, now that's a little far. Like they're so egregiously awful. They were so ugly and so tacky and so tasteless and so pandering. Like whatever your adjective of disgust that you want to use, it was all of those.
The absolute ridiculousness of him being like, this is my time in my career. And you're like, fucking astronaut in their home.
Right.
Like, they ain't nothing you ever did. Period.
This is me in my ranching wear. It's like, dude, there isn't a horse alive that could carry you. There is not a horse alive.
He's never been anywhere that could feasibly be even relatable to that. I don't think in his life.
No. That man's never had a callus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like there's never been a single callus on that man's hands. Not one day of manual labor has he done in his life.
Absolutely right. And when I heard the next day that they were sold out, I was like, you know what? That kind of doesn't surprise me.
Man, I did have hope that was just a bridge too far. That was just a stupidity too far.
It's funny though, because the initial push I saw from the right was, it is a bridge too far.
Right, and that's why I thought, like, because even
Steve Bannon was like, this is a cash grab.
Right.
It's a blatant cash. I can't believe he's doing this. And you're like, if Steve Bannon won't hold your nuts anymore.
Right.
Then you're in deep shit. Because if Steve Bannon won't carry your jock and hold your nuts as Donald Trump, then I don't know where you are anymore. Who's going to back you up now?
Evidently 40,000 sales of stupid fucking digital baseball cards.
I mean, again, I don't know. Tom, I just sold 40,000 NFTs. How are you going to find out?
I know, right? Yeah, I did too. I know, I just did too. Let me check.
I don't know how true it is.
Oh, my analog watch says I did. Yeah.
But, he said a lot of stuff that was a blatant lie. So
you know
I have
what?
no idea.
That is the only true thing right there.
So it's what he said or what they said or what the company said. So I don't know.
Well, let's talk about this story because it's fucking upsetting. This story comes from ProPublica.org. They called 911 for help. Police and prosecutors used the new junk science to decide they were liars. So, Cecil, I grabbed this story because you remember that forensic science deep dive.
Yeah, we did a whole deep dive on forensic science, and how most of it's junk.
Like a crazy, wild...
A lot of it. Stuff you thought was real.
Like is fingerprint analysis. Yeah. So the more you dig into any of this stuff, the more you realize that we're sending people to prison on scientific evidence that is just... nothing. It's just nothing at all.
The difference between some of the stuff we covered in that and this is, at least that stuff seems believable. This is garbage from the start.
Yeah, man.
I cannot wrap my head around the idea that someone can listen to a call, just listen to a call, right?
Right.
Like a lie detector test requires a bunch of stuff, and that's bullshit too, right?
Right.
Lie detectors, bullshit. It's not real, but at least they're measuring things, and they can look at you, and there's more than one sense.
It is at least science adjacent.
Yeah, there's more than one sense at least that they are able to tap into. In this, you're literally talking to someone on a phone or listening, not even talking to them. You don't even get a chance to ask them questions. This is a recorded phone conversation that they are then, after the fact, listening to, and then making a decision based on how the person reacted in a very distressful moment, probably one of the most fraught moments of their entire life.
Yeah, so the whole article goes into this idea that there is a burgeoning, and they go to pains to say this is not science.
Yeah.
And it's not even
It's not even close. It's
presented.
You're right. It's not even science adjacent. It is fucking dowsing on a phone, man.
Yeah, man. It for real is.
You know what? Dowsing actually has more than one sense. I can't even, I can't put
There's no analog.
There's no analog,
Yeah.
man. It's not cold reading, because in cold reading, I might be able to get something. It's not even that.
Yeah, this is like sending people to prison based on reading their aura in a Reiki massage.
Yeah.
It's fucking unreal. So there are prosecutors that are using this bullshit 911 call analysis where they listen to, they purport to send the call to some analyst who listens to the call and then says, oh, I listened to the call and I detected, that they're lying in the call because they seemed too stressed or not stressed enough, or they used the wrong words or terminology.
Yeah.
Like they
used the word blood instead of bloody or something.
Right.
Like
It's just outlandish nonsense, that none of which is backed by anything. And then like the most egregious thing, I think, it's all egregious, but like one of the things that really galls me when I read this article is the prosecutors know this isn't science, and that they can't enter it into testimony as science. So they enter into testimony as something else other than science, but then they couch all of the language in the questioning around it so that jurors will believe that this is a real thing.
Yeah.
When this is the magic of tea leaves, man. There's nothing there.
It is.
And people are going to prison. Their lives are being ruined forever on nothing.
People too are being confronted with this. One of the major things that I think the police departments are trying to say is, this is being used in conjunction with other evidence. That's one of their contentions, was it's being used but it's like, it's not evidence, right? It's someone's fucking like mental, like, it's fucking Karnak holding a fucking envelope to your head. It's ridiculous in its level of should not even be allowed in a court.
Yes.
But even still, you're poisoning a jury when you put somebody up there who looks and pretends like they are an actual expert. And this is something that I think we need to change in the narrative when we talk about law enforcement. We need to change the narrative that they are experts, because they are not experts. It's been shown time and time and time again that all these things that they pretend are real and they pretend are hard science are not science. The fingerprint analysis, the blood spatter analysis, the insect bite analysis, all this stuff that they say is like a hard science is all just bullshit. It's fucking feng shui. It's fucking it's a Rorschach test or whatever.
It's nothing.
Bullshit. And we have this thing where we have a lot of police like television shows that reinforce this, that make it seem like the police have like 100% certainty on things. They look at something, 100%, I'm certain. And it always, it's reinforced constantly that they are experts. And that narrative needs to be turned on its head, because they are not experts. They're bad at solving cases. They're actually not good
They're real bad
at solving cases, right? They're good at convictions, because what they do is they convince people to plea. And that's what's happening here, is that people are seeing, you know what, that's a lot of fucking evidence against me, even though I didn't do anything, right? My lawyer's saying, you better take this plea deal, because you know what's going to happen to you. If they find you guilty, you're going to wind up in a prison forever, or you can take a manslaughter deal. And people are pleading down after being threatened with this stuff.
Yeah, and like one thing you said that I just wanted, it's absolutely right. The police are saying we're using this in conjunction with other evidence. And it's like, this isn't evidence.
It's not evidence.
This isn't an evidence. You don't get to put this in the bucket with the evidence. You put this in the bucket called inadmissible nonsense. This is junk. This is not. The problem too is that when you go in front of a jury, as soon as you, as the defendant, as soon as you sit down, the entire weight of the state is allied against you. The jury files in and they see somebody who has been arrested and is here. All of the deck is stacked against you from the minute that opening proceeding begins. The idea that we actually psychologically and emotionally believe that someone is innocent until proven guilty has been shown time and again to be false. What they show time and again is that as soon as somebody sits at that defendant's table, They have to not prove that they're guilty, but the defendant has to prove that they are innocent.
Yeah.
And the more shit that the prosecutors can drag up there that is expertise adjacent, that shows this idea. Like you said, you watch CSI whatever, you know, and the cops are showing up and they're shining fucking special lights on shit and they're, you know, taking a fucking test tube and looking at it thoughtfully as they turn it upside down in a lab and none of that's anything.
Yeah.
Like there's DNA and then there's everybody else is lying about it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's all fucking, it's a bunch of nothing, but they get to put it all in the same bucket and pretend that it's real. And it's pseudoscience, man. It's science made up. A lot of these guys went to like upstairs discount weekend medical forensic college. They have like weekend certificates in nonsense. That's the level of education that these guys have in a lot of this stuff. It's not like they have 4-year degrees.
No.
I listened to a podcast the other day called Proof, where like somebody got on the stand and they said they had like a master's degree in, I'm gonna get it wrong. They said they had a master's degree in forensic science stuff from St. Louis University. And then the journalists were like, that school doesn't offer a master's in forensic. What they had was
George Santos who said that?
What the guy had was a master's certificate for a weekend course.
Jesus Christ, dude.
That was taken and not even proctored by the university, but was held at the university.
Lord.
And this guy got fucking convicted of a murder that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
Got convicted of a suicide. Is what happened. Like if you listen to Proof, it's an interesting true crime podcast. These two guys get convicted of a suicide as a murder.
Yeah, well, and that's you know, that happens in this story too, where you know a baby dies and then the mom has to plead because they have evidence that they want to, and this is stacking up against them. You know, you're talking about the idea that you know no one who sits in that chair is, you know, people already think they're guilty. Mm-hmm. Think about how many people said Adnan was guilty.
Right.
Do you remember all the people, everybody that you talked to, everybody I talked to, certainly in the skeptic circles, were all like, oh yeah, that guy did it. He totally did it. He totally did it. And I'm just like, are you serious? I listened to that whole show and I did a little reading on it and I was like, I can't imagine a jury convicting him.
Same.
Because even if, and you know, like, I'm not saying that like somebody is blameless, right? I'm not saying he's innocent, but what I am saying is that
there's reasonable doubt.
You didn't have the evidence to put him in jail.
Right.
That's for damn sure.
Yep.
And tons of people were saying, no, man, he's guilty. Like they're not just saying like, maybe he did it. They're saying he's guilty.
Yep.
And so think of that. And that's just somebody who's listening to a podcast, man. That's all that is. Yep. That's just a dude listening to a podcast. So think about that. And that's an uphill battle that they have to climb every single time. This is also, you know, these are people who are in a distressful moment in their life. Like this is a very distressful moment. And they're calling and then they're analyzing this. You know, we talk about this when the police show up and they make a mistake and they shoot someone, right? They make a mistake, right. The guy at a fucking hero sandwich or whatever.
I know, yep.
And we have to be, when we're stopped by the police, 100% perfect. Because if you're not, you're gonna get murdered. And when you talk to them on the phone during a very difficult time, you have to be 100% perfect. Because if you're not, that might be used against you as, you know, it's like everything has to be so perfect for the citizenry, but we never hold the police up to that same level.
You're exactly right.
Not a single time. Not a single time do we do that.
Yeah. When it's the police, it's, oh, I was scared. When it's the police, it's, well, we can't second guess how somebody would respond in a stressful, dangerous situation. We don't want to armchair quarterback, but we are armchair quarterbacking every lay person who's ever called 911. Have you ever been in a really stressful situation and had to call for help?
Yeah.
When that happens, a lot of people get really calm.
Yeah.
Like that's a really common response.
I had an experience on the L, and I talked about it on the show once, where a woman went into seizures.
I remember this.
And I just immediately took charge of the situation. I told somebody to press the button for the train. I told somebody to call 911. I reached down and someone was like, put something in her mouth. And I held the crowd back from putting things in her mouth. I like picked her head up and I held her head. And I was like there was a whole bunch of stuff that just like went through my head. I was like, this is all gotta be done. And no one is doing it, right? So someone has to do it. I'm gonna do it. And so I just did it. But I was really calm the whole time. As soon as she left, dude, it was a huge adrenaline dump. As soon as she was got sat up, I was just like, because my body was finally like, okay, now you can do something. Like now you can freak out, but you can't freak out until then. And think about what it's like to find a dead loved one. And your body's just like, I've got to do something about this. And I've got to do something about this right now. And your body, if you just let it do the thing it wanted to do, you're going to break down. But you got to do the thing. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
Like,
I do. Yeah. And if the opposite, here's the thing, it's like, if you see something distressing and you react in this like big emotionally effusive way, that's understandable. If you don't, that's also understandable. And everything along the continuum is understandable too. If, like you said, if you don't react and then you get overwhelmed as time goes on and as the police show up and as these different stressors come into the equation, pretending that there is a right way and that responses outside of this norm, there's no norm. The problem with all this science is they never establish controls. All of these forensic sciences, they work to do the same bullshit anomaly hunting nonsense.
Exactly it. Exactly right.
Where they're like, well, this is anomalous. And you're like,
exactly
what's your
right.
control?
Yep.
What's your standard? How is it defined? What testing did you do to make sure that was experimentally? None of that, because this is in science. There's nothing scientific about it except for they show up with ghost hunter tools, man. That's all it is. It's this scientific-ish stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Where they go to Radio Shack. Radio Shack doesn't exist anymore. I'm old. They go.
It's so old that that's on Stranger Things.
God. I mean? Like, I feel so embarrassed by that reference right now. All right, they go to service merchandise. Hear me out.
One of the characters is a guy who works as and you're like, Radio Shack, I remember that place.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, they go get their fucking bebobs and bits and bobs and fucking.
They go to the buggy whip factory.
Yeah. You know what? They got their circuit boards and their, transistor tubes. But you know what I mean? They build these fucking orgone generators and other bullshit.
I do.
It's all bullshit.
It's all a lie.
Just because it lights up or beeps or like you can shine a light on it, it looks a different color, or you say like, oh, I can hear the stress patterns in the voice. Fuck you. Yeah. How about this? Fuck you. Yeah. No, you can't.
Yeah. How about no? And then we start from, instead of coming to your conclusion and working backwards, let's do science for real.
Right.
Let's do science for real one time when it comes to people's freedom for their whole life.
Like, can we actually just take a high school level science class where you learn what science is as an experimental process? And that's it. We don't have to get past the first semester of high school fucking pick a class. Biology, chemistry, physics. I don't give a shit. Yeah. They'll all teach you the basic. These guys don't run through the basics.
They don't even have the basics. You're right. And when they talked about the methodology in this particular study, they were saying like it's mostly done in one state. Most of the calls come from the same state.
Yep.
Most of them, over 2/3 of them, were white people. Right. So when you have a study that's only 100 calls, 66 of them are from white people. All these problems with the methodology and. Anybody who is anybody looks at this like it's crazy talk. But what's insane is that it gets sent out by the FBI, who have been perpetrators of bullshit for so long.
The FBI loves pseudoscience.
That bullet analysis garbage that they threw out years ago, and they're still using
the fucking murder profiling, all that shit.
That's bullshit.
It's all fake.
And then you talk about this. This is all bullshit.
Yep.
It's like, and this is sent out by the FBI, and there's part of me that wonders why is it that law enforcement is so fucking easy to dupe and so easy to sort of set this up and get one over on. And I think there's a couple of reasons. One, they're desperate, I think, to try to solve cases, right?
Yeah,
so I think
there's a lot of motivation in there.
Desperation and motivation, right? I think that's part of it. But I also think there really seriously is some sort of nepotism that gets people in the door to make the money for these extracurricular classes that they have to take, that they do as extras for the police to learn trainings.
Yep.
there's always, and I'm not saying that it's a kickback money. I'm just saying like there's somebody there who's like a friend of a friend. Hey, can you get my buddy in? And there's tax dollars are paying for it.
All these industries are connected
for it. So why don't we just see if we can get my friend in here, and he knows somebody, and he knows a guy who knows a guy who can get him in as a deputy over here, and then he can teach his stupid class to people who aren't maybe all that critical anyway, and then they just believe it as a reality.
You know, I think you're not at all wrong about that. I think back to when I worked at Circuit City 10,000 years ago, and I used to sell home theater junk. And you got to know all of the reps from all of the major retail, all the major electronic companies. They'd send their sales reps in to teach you how to sell their stuff. Yeah. You'd become friendly. You'd have lunch. The industries work like that. They interweave their vendors in with their people. I also think there's a huge, we said this before on the show, but I think it's a big fucking deal. I think there is a huge, huge problem in police departments where if you want to be a detective, instead of going to fucking be a detective college, you go to college or some college or whatever, and you work your way up. Yeah, that's not good. That's bad. That is the wrong system. If you want to be a detective, you should go and be trained on what makes good evidence. And you should go and you should get a fucking investigative degree that is specific and deliberative, that is different than a criminal justice degree, if that's even required, which they often aren't even required. If
that's the case, then why doesn't every single teacher out there, like somebody who teaches in like, say, college, start as like an administrative assistant in that college?
Right, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
Why wouldn't that be
just
the case?
Being a part of the system's enough.
Part of the college, so I should be able to teach, right? That's how teaching works. No, nobody does that. And it doesn't work like that in almost anything. Right. It only seems to work like that with police officers.
That's exactly. You know, like if teaching is a great example. If you're a teacher, you can't just say, well, I'm going to work my way up to principal. You have to go to school and get a different educational degree in order to be in administration. Sure. You can't just be like, I'm a great English teacher. I have a degree in English literature.
I'm an English teacher. I can run a school district.
Right.
I'll be a superintendent of schools.
It's nonsense. Yeah. It's nonsense. Yeah. But so, you know, the thing is, like, a lot of these guys aren't educated. They're just not. They're guys that work their way up. They, School of Hard Knocks, bitter experience. That's what I got under my belt.
I've seen enough people lie to me. I know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how do you know?
Yeah, dude.
Like,
that's intuition,
that's
bro.
Nothing.
And that's useless. Yep. It's literally useless.
And it's all of your biases. All of your biases.
That's all it is. It's all your biases come to life.
Yep.
It's all it is. And literally all this is, even in the article, they say it just screams confirmation bias. Yep. That's all it does. That's all it does. This is a horror, yet another horror dealt out by the FBI and inflicted on the people, the citizens of this country, by law enforcement to treat us like we don't have any rights.
Yep.
And that's exactly what this is. They should be making every effort to strive to get as scientific and as right as possible. They should always be making that error bar shrink. And what they do is don't give a fuck about the error bar.
They don't. And like you said earlier, what they want is the conviction.
That's it.
That's what they're working for. They're not working for the truth.
It's what makes...
They're working for the conviction.
What gets their boss voted in. Yep. That's what gets their boss voted in, is how many convictions they have.
Because that's how they got their raise, man.
Conviction rate is real high in this country.
Yep.
80s. It's in the 80s. The murder rate, that solves below 50.
Yep. Yeah. Right.